And here we go. And now YouTube should pick it up. There we go. And let's see. There it is. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the International Kriegspiel Society's School of the Umpire. Today I'm going to teach the K22 system. I've made a number of videos in the past about the K22 system. I'm going to make another one. And the aim of this video is to teach people specifically how to umpire the K22 system. For those of you who are here who would like to join the table, you may do so. The table name is Kriegspiel on Tabletop Simulator, and the password is IKS, all lowercase. When you join, I'll promote you so you can manipulate things on the table and you can look around, and should be a good experience for everyone. Let me see here. Let me pull up the OBS. I'm going to turn on my little camera real quick, and I guess it's not showing up. I don't know what I did with my little on-screen camera. Let's see here. I was going to say hi to everyone, but you don't get to see me because the camera is behind the display capture, and I don't know how that works. Maybe I can move that like that if I do that. There it is. Hey. Hello, everyone. It is early in the morning here in California, where I'm coming from, and I've got my official IKS sweater on, talking about this, and I got the mug, and I've got the notebook, and probably the bumper sticker, and the movie somewhere.
Whoa.
Yeah, I've got all the swag going on,
We got
right?
the merch? Oh, link it, dude. I want to buy
Right, we
some.
got the merch. Yeah, we got it. It's I think you can find it on our website, which is creekspiel.org.
I want that mug.
Right? Actually, unfortunately, the mug that we have in the store is a silly, like 11-ounce mug or something. It's completely
Dude, I don't
lame.
care.
It is extra tiny. This mug and this sweater both I had to get from a different service, but the store, they don't give you a free store. They want to charge you for the store and everything. So I can work with people to get these items ordered, but I have to do it on an individual basis. I sell these things pretty much at cost. Maybe the IKS makes like $1 off every sale of merch. That's because I just want you guys to be able to have this stuff, get the brand out there. That's all. You know, it's not about making money. We got plenty of money. I got money. We're good. Let's see here. Okay, I'm going to turn off my video now so it's not in the way of what we're going to do today. Okay, and
I
I'm
guess
going
you
to,
could say it's for the culture.
right? Sure. Okay, I'm going to promote, and then I'm going to promote again. There we go. All right, so I've got a few people in here who are promoted. Again, anybody else who wants in, the word is, or the name of the service, Kriegspiel. The password is IKS, all lowercase. All right, let's talk about Kriegspiel in general. Kriegspiel it's not a game. It's not meant to be fun. It's not meant to be played by gamers. It is a training exercise, and we as gamers are insisting that we play it as a game. And the problem is, original Kriegspiel is pretty hard to play as a game. It's kind of unplayable. You can do it. You can absolutely do it, but you need a lot of umpires or very few players. You have to really know the rules for the umpires. The players, you don't want the players to know the rules at all because you don't want them to game the system. Um, the Prussians had all kinds of issues with it. They modified the rules several times over the course of not quite a whole century, maybe over 50, 75 years. They modified the rules a lot. They eventually junked all of the rules. They came out with a version called Free Kriegspiel where the umpire just looks at the map and says this is the outcome, and that seemed to work as well as anything. Um, the thing is what we've done here in the IKS and what many people who run or play Kriegspiels have done is they've created their own systems of play. And a system of play generally has rules. And in fact, if you look here, I have a rules document. It's not 100% complete because this is really still a beta, although a lot of it's pretty much set. It's not going to change much. The cavalry thing is probably going to change a little bit. Um, but the rules are guidelines, and the purpose is to create realistic outcomes to realistic engagements. You want the game to play quickly because, again, we are gamers. And so the rules are guidelines, and sometimes you get these outlier results, and you say, you know what, that's just kind of weird. And so we tweak it as umpires. And as umpires, you have the discretion to tweak how you resolve a battle or everything. The end result is you really want to provide the players with a problem, and you want them to be able to solve the problem. The problem should be solvable. There should be no Kobayashi Maru type scenarios necessarily, especially not for new players. Um, but then you want the players to kind of create problems for each other as they interact, and the fog of war will create some problems, and you want to see how they work through those problems. And if at the end of the battle, the umpires will give a critique to each of the players. The critique in general should be kind of positive, although sometimes if they make glaring errors, you kind of have to point that out. And the experience should more or less be fun and informative for all of the players. Now, again, this isn't really consistent with the original Kriegspiel, which again was a training exercise. So there was a lot of pressure. The games played very slowly. It wasn't originally intended to be a game, but we've essentially made it into a game while preserving the critical and essential elements of Kriegspiel. We use original Prussian maps, but we also have a wide variety of other maps. I'll show you. Here's one of our 3D maps, a 3D map of Lynchburg that we've created. Tabletop Simulator lets us do all kinds of things. Here's Gettysburg. Let's see here. Here is someplace in Europe, probably around, Leipzig. There you go. Um, and so on. So we have these different maps. We've got like Austerlitz or something somewhere. Here's the wilderness. We've got just a wide variety. Here we go. I think this is Austerlitz. And we've got all of these really cool maps that we've pulled off the atlases from Europe to create everything. You'll notice the map is overlaid with the grid. That's the first thing you want to understand here is these grid squares for us, our standard in the IKS is a 400 pace grid square. So we measure everything in paces. The grid square is 400 paces across. This allows us to kind of eyeball everything, eyeball movement and engagement ranges and so on. One of the things I don't like and I don't want is I don't want this happening. I don't want somebody out there with the ruler like they're playing miniatures. And I joke that I hate miniatures. I really don't. It's kind of a little inside joke. But one of the problems with miniature games is you see these guys with these long tape measures, and they're measuring stuff down to the centimeter or whatever it may be. And that takes a lot of time. We don't have time for that. So we would rather just eyeball things. So we have these squares essentially set to 400 paces, and that tells us how far a unit can move in about 5 minutes. Depending on the rule set, I know, who was it? Was it Verdi von Waw would give them, 100 paces a minute? And the actual pace of the march could vary for a wide variety of reasons. But anyway, in the IKS, we give 4 to 500 paces per minute of time, or so in 5 minutes they can move across one square. Now, I deduct movement for what I call complications. Anytime there's a complication to movement, I reduce their movement rate by about 20-25%. So, if I have a unit, let's say I've got this red infantry unit here, and the red infantry unit is going uphill. Okay, so I've got this red infantry, and they're right here, and they're in column. And in fact, I can actually put them into column. Let me flip them over. We have these really cool pieces that are scripted. So I've got this red infantry unit, right? In 5 minutes, they would normally go from here to, about here. That's 400 paces or so, roughly. Um, if I want them to go uphill, however, I'm going to deduct about 20% of their movement points and maybe only move them here instead of here because they marched uphill. It slows them down. And for every complication, let's say they're going uphill and let's say they're in formation. Let's say they expect to encounter the enemy for some reason and they are in line formation and they're going uphill. Now I'm going to deduct about 40% of their movement points. So they're only going to get about that far. Okay, things like that. So that is how we regulate movement. Now, is it precise? Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Kriegspiel is what we call the land of fudge. And again, we're not concerned with to the millimeter precision here. We're just kind of concerned with getting it more or less right and accurate. And the players have to sort it out because in real life, it's messy. In real life, everything is very inconsistent. So, and the other thing is, we don't want players to be doing this stuff where, because I've got this order before, they'll do this. I want you to move my infantry up so that they're within range of the enemy, but the enemy can't shoot them back. And there might be, let's say you're modeling some difference in weapons, and one weapon has 50 yards range more than the other. They're like, well, move just to the very edge of that range so we can shoot them and they can't shoot us back. Ridiculous. You don't have time to simulate that or do that as an umpire. And, the players will do that because they're that competitive, but that's not the point of the exercise. It's not what we're trying to do. And, orders like that are generally disregarded. Um, so, uh, yeah, we don't do that around here. It's just, the orders that the players give should be relatively simple. We'll talk about that in a minute. All right, let's take a look here at. Let me go back. I like map. I think it's map 3. I like this map. This map is perfect for the K22 system. Let's talk about the K22 system. There are different systems for different levels of play. K22 plays closer to original Kriegspiel. The turns are 5 minutes instead of our standard, which is 15 minutes. And our formations here are battalions and half battalions instead of brigades. So typically, your typical IKS game, players are pushing a few brigades around the map. They may have some artillery or some cavalry or both, and the turns are 15 minutes in length. We generally start players on the map or around the map edge, and we make them kind of go find each other and figure everything out. We'll set an objective or two for them, and it's a heck of a lot of fun. It takes a while. The march to the battle is a lot of fun. It works pretty well. The problem where these systems break down is there's a lot of even give and take between the two sides, and I feel that's a little unrealistic myself personally. I'm like, okay, it breaks down when it gets to the combat level. It works well enough for the game. It is fun, but I wanted a system that was a little bit better, a little bit more realistic. One of the other problems with the existing systems that we use is the battles can drag on. Like you'll have two sides shooting at each other. With a 15-minute turn, you roll dice. Oh, okay, there's no resolution to the combat. They stay engaged. And you can have units banging away at each other for an hour or longer. Not always, but sometimes. And to me, that's also realistic. If you look at actual Napoleonic and American Civil War combat, these long drawn out battles that we hear about, Waterloo, Austerlitz, and so on, they're actually one-offs. They're uncommon. The typical Napoleonic battle didn't really make it into the history books because it lasted maybe 5 to 15 minutes, 45 minutes for a long one. There was usually an immediate result. Typically, one unit just kind of scurried away from the other. And that's rarely modeled. But I wanted a system that would model that. So I came up with the K22 system. The turns are 5 minutes in length. It is suitable for, 1v1, 2v2 type games. Larger games, it starts to break down. If you want to move in larger time increments, like 10 or 15 minutes, you can, it still works, but then above that it starts to break down. And if you want to run like, these brigade, division level experiences or corps level experiences, it's not suitable at all. However, if you want to play something that's close to original Kriegspiel, which moves in 2-minute turns and has half battalions and battalions, well, K22 is great. It works beautifully to do that. So let's get some units here and drop them on the map. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to take 4 of those, and we'll take a battery here. And this is probably what I typically allow a player to push around the map. It's going to be 4 units of infantry, more or less, and a battery. Let's see here. But it varies. It varies. So here we get into K22. One of the problems with our other systems is we tend to give players roughly equal formations. So they'll have, you'll have 3 brigades, and your enemy will have 3 brigades, and they're exactly equal. And again, when they clash, they both roll a die, and it's kind of a 50-50 exchange. And you would end up with these situations where, let me make this look a little neat. You end up with a situation. I'll move to some flat terrain right here. Hang on. You end up with these situations where the two sides are shooting at each other, and they're rolling 1, 2, 3, 4 dice. 1, 2, 3, 4 dice. This unit loses, this unit wins, this unit wins, this unit loses, and you get something weird that looks like this. I've got a puppy that is playing with its squeak toy, and it's distracting. All right.
Puppies are great though.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm telling my son, "Hey, take it away." Anyway, this is on.
Which Greek god is this one named after?
Well, we have Argos, Demeter, and now the newest one is Zephyr. There you go. So yeah, the puppy is named Zephyr. Anyway, this is unrealistic. This isn't. I'm not satisfied with how this works. So my system doesn't do this. My system doesn't roll 8 dice, which I think slows things down as well. Instead, what we do is we group this as one huge combat, and then we roll 1 die, and we resolve the combat with all the units together taking kind of a result. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But first, I'm going to introduce you to what I call combat value. It's the concept of combat value. And combat value is what allows players to vary their formations. So combat value is based on a default of 5. So generally speaking, each block at standard quality has combat value of 5. And you can flip these over, and we can actually set these here to whatever. 3, 4, 5. Okay, so let's say that middle value is combat value. Oop, I just did something there. No, now I'm gonna make it. You know what? I think I changed the state, didn't I? Let's see here. Oh man. See, these units are really cool because you can name them and everything. Well, we're just gonna back up time here. Or you know what? I could just nuke it and replace it. Gotta be smarter, right? 10% smarter than the things you work with. I don't even know where it went now. There it is. There it is. Alright, so what we're gonna do, we're just gonna delete that block. And we'll copy another one here. And it's right there. Okay, so I'm setting combat value. I did it again. Oh, that's why. Okay, that's how that works. 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just taking these numbers down to 0 to avoid confusion. 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so these units have a combat value of 5. And that's kind of the default value. Apparently I can't go higher. But sometimes they can be a 6 as well. So that simulates like they're a guard unit, you know, or an elite unit of some sort. They might have a combat value of 6. They could also be like a recruit or militia unit, a new unit to war. They are an inexperienced troops. We might set their combat value at 4. The way that works is the players are assigned points. That's what these little things are. And I might let players randomly draw a chit, or I might assign them points, and then they can build their unit. They can build their brigade, and that's you're going to brigade. You purchase by the battalion. Each battalion includes 2 blocks, each block represents a half battalion of 450 men. And this is the point cost. So you spend 8 points, 10 points, or 12 points. And then they get the combat value. And the combat value for militia is going to be 4 points. Combat value for regular will be 5 points per block. Combat value for elite will be 6 points per block. If they want to add a skirmish company, particularly if you're doing after like 1808, you're doing Napoleonic post 1808, and they have embedded skirmish companies become more common. You can say, well, we'll put a little skirmish block out, and I put one of these with it, and this block is just a reminder that one side has the skirmishers, and that tells me that this half battalion here has skirmishers, and I can put one there, and that's a +1 die roll modifier to the roll, is what the skirmish block does. But basically, here's the 2 formations now. Okay, so now I have 2 formations, and the 2 formations are about to fight. And the first thing you do is you group the combat. You take a look and see, okay, what group of units is fighting what group of units. And here we have a pretty big combat. You have all these guys are fighting all these guys. Okay, that's one combat. That's the first step. Your second step, calculate the combat value between them. Okay, I've got 5, 10, 15, 20. Artillery does not count. They add a die roll modifier because the way I want artillery to work is it should support the attack. It should be supporting the infantry. A lot of players love to do counter battery fire or whatever else. I have dice and rules for that, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But generally speaking, artillery should be used to support the infantry. That's why it's there. So it's a +1 die roll modifier. So here we've got 20 points of combat value. Over here we have 20 points, but guess what? They've also got skirmishers. So we actually have 22 points of combat. Well, I can't remember if I did that. I don't think it works that way. I forgot my own rules. So we have 20 points versus 20 points, but they've got a couple die roll modifiers here. Okay, so now, and they have the artillery and support. So the two sides are identical, except the blue side has skirmishers out. Okay, so I now have to determine what side is going to be called superior and what side is going to be called inferior. Now, superior and inferior are just kind of designations, and it helps with combat resolution because of the results on the dice. It does not matter what side you declare superior or inferior. The side with the greater combat value should be declared superior, but there's generally not, when they are pretty close together in odds, a difference that it makes, unless one side has +2 combat value more than the other. So these two sides have the same combat value, 20 versus 20. So we're going to go grab our die, and it's these D10. And this here is what I call this the even money die, because it is the die that you roll when the two sides are even. Okay, and it says here, even combat value die, infantry versus infantry. So this here is the correct die to roll for all of this, okay? And you see here on a roll of 1, the superior is routed, and then on a roll of 8, the inferior is going to fall back. Is that right, or should that be routed? Let me...
Yeah, that sounds a little lopsided. I'd rather be inferior there.
Yeah, it is wrong. I'll have to tweak it. This is the first time I've used this. So fall back.
Shouldn't it be number 10? Isn't that a D10? Sorry.
Yeah, it is a D10. Oh, that's
Oh,
right.
that's probably why.
Oh, sorry.
There it is.
Okay, I'm used to using the D8s. I found in testing that the D8s produced too many outlier results, so I've changed to a D10. That's why. That's why I messed that up. So the die looks correct. Okay, so let's go ahead and roll the die. Now, blue is superior, red is inferior, even though the die is the same for both sides. However, I'm declaring blue superior because they've got skirmishers. Blue has a +1 for their artillery. Red has a +1 for their artillery. Those cancel out. So what I'm going to do, because they have skirmisher blocks out, is I'm going to give them a +2 to die roll modifier. So blue is superior, and they have a +1, +2 to their die roll modifier. Let's roll the die. Okay, and the result is 6, but now I apply the 2 die roll modifiers. 8, inferior falls back. Okay, now let's talk about these results. I have 3 results here: fall back, retreat, and routed. Okay, fall back. Fall back means the formation retreats by 200 paces. That's 1/2 of a square. They retreat 200 paces in good order. They don't take any disruption. They don't suffer ill effects. They're just, pulling everything back kind of out of range of the intense fire that the enemy is throwing out. They fall back. If we go to 9, inferior retreats. A retreat is 400 paces, and they will take disruption, but no losses. They take disruption, and I put a little disruption token on them to indicate that they've taken disruption. What is disruption? Disruption is anything that happens to a unit to reduce its combat value. It basically makes the unit fight less effectively. It's disorganized. They've suffered some casualties. Maybe an officer's been hit or something. Maybe they're, it could be anything at all that disrupts their fighting effectiveness. In addition, this here lowers their combat value by 1. So now they're going to be inferior again. So blue, let's say blue says, okay, well, we're going to keep pushing. All right, so blue comes back within range. And now let's calculate the combat value. 4, 8, 12, 16 versus 20. Now, blue has 2 or better combat value advantage over red. We no longer roll the even money die because it's not even money, right? It's not even. We're now going to roll the advantage die. This one has better odds for the superior side. Okay? And so here it says on the die, it's got the rules on it. Advantage die, superior combat value, greater or equal of 2 versus the inferior. Okay? So we're going to roll it, plus we're going to apply the 2 DRM because blue has skirmishers. Okay, so we roll it, and we got a 9. We can only rotate it up to a 10. Inferior is now routed. Okay, what does routed mean? When a unit is routed, they fall back 800 paces. They're going to, let's do this. I would normally put them into column or whatever. I guess I could do that as well. Column, 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 column. I also know that these units have a routed state, I believe. I think I can put them on 3. Is that it? Is that routed state? Yeah, it is. Okay, so we could do that, actually. And that also
Oh, cool.
simulates, yeah, that they've been routed. Okay, a routed unit is a routed unit, right? I think we all know what that is. We don't even need the disruption tokens. It's pretty redundant. But this unit has had a really bad experience. They're going to take a loss. They're going to take a step loss. So they're probably not going to come back for at least maybe an hour or more. They're basically done. They're routed from the field. In longer engagements, they may rally and reform and come back. In the K22 system, though, the engagements usually aren't that long. So they've been routed. Okay? So that's how that works. So, to recap, calculate the combat value. Well, first, determine what units are fighting what units. Calculate the total combat value of the two formations that are exchanging fire. And then choose the correct die, roll the die, and apply the result, whatever it may be. And the result is right here on this here. Also, if a unit takes a hit or a loss, you reduce its state by 1. And you reduce the state by 1 for each unit that takes a hit. Okay? So if there's only 1 hit, and there's actually not going to be, there would only be 1 hit for the whole formation, you would do that. Okay, so the whole combat will produce a hit, and when there's a hit, you apply 1 hit to 1 unit in the whole formation. You pick which one you want to say gets hit. Okay? It's not as bloody as people expect, but then again, these engagements were not as bloody as people think they were. So that's why we're not making them all take hits, just 1 unit. We pick 1 unit, boom, that unit takes a hit. I was going to say one other thing about that. Yes, the exception is melee. Anytime 2 formations melee, they all take 1 hit automatically. I don't care if you're super elite or what, you're all taking a step loss because you're going to do a melee. And even the superior side, everyone takes a melee hit. And the idea is, I want to discourage melee. Melee was not something that the soldiers liked to do. It was brutal, it was disruptive, it was uncommon. And the way to, make that happen is both sides are going to take losses. And when they do that, all blocks take losses under melee. So the whole
So,
formation.
are you
Go
taking
ahead.
questions
Yeah,
during
go
this?
ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So let's say you have those 4 blocks plus that block of artillery there, and I charge it with 1 block. I do significantly more damage than I take because I take 1 and they take 5.
No, because you're only going to be able to you're only 1 block. In fact, I'm probably as an umpire, because that's not a typical move, but let's say you did that as an umpire, I would, because I don't really have a rule that governs that, to be honest with you, because
Okay.
it's not something that typically ever happens. But
And shouldn't. But
yeah, but let's say you did that. As an umpire, this is where the rules are guidelines, and I'm gonna say, you know what, you're done.
You're dead.
You're shattered. Okay.
Okay.
I might let you impose a loss here, so he would go down a step, right? I might do that, but your block is done.
Yep.
Okay. I want to discourage that kind of behavior. So I'm going to apply my umpire's discretion to punish it. However, at the same time, yeah, you're making this courageous charge. Let's say this is the 20th Maine versus the Alabama or whatever they were coming up the hill, and it's like that. And again, umpires, you use your discretion when you end up in these one-off scenarios or situations. That's what it means to be an umpire, is you're going to use a certain level of discretion to resolve the combat in a realistic way. So, there we go. There's Zephyr, you're hearing barking. Okay, artillery. I don't like the way players do a lot of counter battery fire, but but they do. They'll do it, and they also do it anytime the units don't have anything else to do. To kind of control that, I put them on an ammo budget, and I give them about 4 or 5 rounds of ammo, meaning they can fire for 15, 20 minutes before they run out. But let's say the two sides want to do counter battery fire. This is about maximum range for that is 4 squares, and it's actually on the ruler. And let's see, watch the ruler say, oh, it's 5. But there we go. Okay, so for 12-pound guns, it would be a little further. But whatever. But the ruler basically has it here, though it's random. So really, I say within 4 squares, I let you guys start shooting at each other. Outside of that, I generally don't allow it because you're mostly going to miss anyway. Even then, even here, you're going to miss. Now, we can do a straight die roll, but at extreme ranges like that at the very edge, I do this thing where I take 2 dice and I take the lesser of the 2. So at this range, you're probably not going to score many hits. At this range, at 3 or better, I make it a straight die roll. At 2 and 3, I run it that way. I don't have this written in the rule book, and that's a miss. So you'll notice that you miss on everything but 8, 9, and 10. And again, that's because I don't want you using your artillery to do counter battery all day. I want you using your artillery to fire on the enemy's maneuver elements, which is how it's supposed to be used. So I kind of punish you for not using artillery in a historical fashion. That being said, counter battery fire was a thing, and you should be allowed to order counter battery fire. And within 2, by the way, or within 1 square, I'll let you roll both and take both results. So you can get some pretty gruesome results under this. But I think that's pretty not very typical that both sides would have their guns that close to each other. Represents the use of grape shot or canister. But basically, on a roll of 8, that's a hit. So a hit is indicated by a little star, which is this, or an explosion. And I put that on there. Okay, blue took a hit. And what I do then is I reduce their die roll by 1. So now if blue is to shoot at red, I reduce the die roll by 1. Now it's a miss. For every one of these little things on here. That's your punishment. And you get like 4. You got 4 guns on there. Once all those guns are wiped out, the battery is gone. Also a 10, this is a hit and a retreat. So you take one of these and the battery gets the heck out. Okay, so that's how we do that. When the two sides are doing counter battery fire, they will both roll dice at each other. Typically when it's infantry, you roll 1 die only. 1 die. So it's pretty quick. Here, however, you're going to roll a die for each battery that's firing. If it's a group of batteries, you could probably just do the 2 dice, but generally speaking, they both roll a die. Now, cavalry. Let's talk real quick about cavalry, then we're done. Sorry this has gone on so long. Let's see here. Copy. So, we're missing, what are we missing? Carbiner, or however you pronounce it, which is the really heavy infantry, and I need to redo these rules to include them. I thought we had those blocks made, but whatever. Okay, so we've got these different formations here. Copy, and when they fight each other, it's just a straight battle. Okay, so hussars versus hussars, it's going to be a straight cav versus cav die roll. Okay, just like in original Kriegspiel, you got to pick up the correct die. Now these here are still d8s, and I believe it's yeah, this one here. So we got cav, dragoon, and cav versus infantry. Just an FYI there. So when the two hussars fight each other, we're just going to roll a die, and it's a straight die. We declare one side as superior. And if you don't know which one, if everything's equal, just pick. Say red's always superior, whatever. And then, so this is the red die. They both roll a die. So the red die here in this case is target cavalry unit falls back. So these guys are going to fall back 200 paces. But now I've got to roll the die for them because it's simultaneous. And target cavalry unit routed. This unit gets routed. Okay? So I don't think there's a state here for these. But we can put the routed token on them to indicate they're routed. Let's see here. Let's just, well, no, I can just pull one out. And I'm just illustrating that this can be done. This is how we do it. If I can find where, there we are. And we can set the state here to breaking or routed. There we go. Okay? And that's that. When you have a difference between the units, they're different types of units. Let's say you have Lancers versus Dragoons. Okay? Now you have to use the chart. So let's see, Lancers versus Dragoons. Lancers versus Dragoons. Dragoons are going to get a +1 to their initial die. Then I'm going to roll a second die. That's what R2 rolls a second time for the other side. And then the Lancers are going to get a +2 to their die roll. What that represents is the Dragoons are firing their muskets or musketoons or whatever. And then the Lancers close within range, and the Lancers have lances, which are nasty. So I'm going to roll first for the Dragoons, and they're going to get a +1 to their die roll. Okay. Target cavalry unit retreats, but we're going to give them a +1. Target cavalry unit routed. Okay, so the Dragoons are going to rout the Lancers. The Lancers are not going to stay intact after this engagement, but they do get to engage. And we roll this, and we, oh, it's ineffective, but they get a +2. Target cavalry unit falls back. So the story that the die tells you is the Lancers came at the Dragoons fired at the Lancers and inflicted good losses on them. Maybe they held their fire to the last second. They inflicted losses on the Lancers. The Lancers clashed and did harm to the Dragoons, but now the Lancers immediately ran away. They're routed, whereas the Dragoons just kind of fell back in the face of all of that, and they reorganized after the attack 200 paces to the rear, but in good order. So that's the story that is told by the dice, and that's kind of how it works. The only other die I haven't shown you is the unopposed artillery die, which is this one here. And I don't know if I'm going to recreate it or not. I might leave it. But unopposed artillery. Let's say I have a formation of troops. These guys are just marching along here. And I've got this battery here, and it starts firing. These guys aren't able to shoot back, let's say, and usually they can fire within about 1 square. Outside of a square, their fire becomes very ineffective. At this range, they're basically out of musket range for this artillery battery. But the artillery battery can reach out and touch them. So I have a special die for that. And I roll the die, and it's a straight die roll. And here's the result. The defender routs. So this artillery started firing on these guys, and they scored some very effective hits. And so the defender, let's say this battalion or this half battalion block here, it would just be the half battalion block, gets routed. You know? And then if I want to kind of contaminate the other units with that panic, I can impose whatever else I want on this. Again, umpire's discretion. Or I might not. I might say, you know, let's say they're marching up the road this way. And again, I'm not going to take time to put them into their cute little column formation here. and this artillery battery is here, and it rolls a 7. This unit gets routed, but these units, continue to forge ahead. I could do that too. That's reasonable. So that's how it goes. So to make sense of all this, you just come here to the front page of this. Group the units that are involved in combat. Total the combat value of infantry on both sides. The side with the highest combat value is the superior side. If there is no higher combat value, if the combat values are identical, just declare one side, say red, or say blue, or flip a coin, whatever you want to do. Roll a die. You'll notice the dice have numbers on them. You can also roll a die just to get a straight number result, or an odd or even result, whatever. That's why the numbers are on there. They're there as an aid. Then determine any die roll modifiers. You can have a maximum of plus or minus 3 die roll modifiers. Your die roll modifiers are going to be terrain, cover, not woods, usually structures. The woods don't provide you with the protection people think they do. A lot of people like to hang out in woods. That's not always good, especially with artillery crashing into you. You get splinters everywhere. It's not pretty. Light infantry support, so those are those little blocks I put out, or artillery provides a +1 DRM per battery. Again, up to a maximum of plus or minus 3. Roll the correct die, apply the die roll modifier, then apply the results. A hit result only applies to 1 unit per group of engaged units. So if both sides have 5 blocks hitting and a loss is suffered, only 1 block is reduced out of all of them. The exception is melee. All units participating are reduced by 1. Okay? All right. And then there's your results there. So there you have it. They can do assault columns and stuff if they want to. Here's your cavalry matrix. And here's how to build your units. Okay, out of the points that we give you. So that's how that works. Okay? Here's your menu. And I usually say you can do infantry and artillery or cavalry and horse artillery. But you can't mix. You're either an infantry formation or a cavalry commander. You can't have infantry, artillery, and cavalry in your formation. I usually don't allow that. Anyway. Well, there you have it, guys. That's how the K22 system works. I know it's been a long, kind of convoluted explanation. Are there any questions? I've got time for maybe 1 or 2, then we got to get rolling with the regular 8 o'clock game.
I've actually got one.
Go ahead.
So let's say you have and I do have no idea how to pronounce this, the cavalry that starts with the C, the cuirassiers?
Yeah, cuirassiers, and I'm probably
Cuirassiers.
mispronouncing. Yeah, don't worry
Yeah,
about
I've
it.
never said that word before. Okay, so let's say they charge and the enemy falls back. Reasonably, my cuirassiers should follow them, right? Is that represented in the rules at all?
Not necessarily, but again, if the cuirassiers get a particularly good result, we might say they'll continue on. Yeah,
Right.
Again, this is where the umpire discretion comes in. Typically, I wanted the cavalry to be a little fragile because when horses commit to a charge, they end up being blown and they're kind of done for the day. I don't want people to have these super units. I don't want them to have space marines. I don't want them to have cavalry that can charge across the battlefield all day. These are not tanks. These are men on horses. They're biological creatures, and they have limits to their endurance. And usually, like with cavalry, you can do one good, solid, full-on charge in a day, and then you're done. But according to the research, if you spare the horses, if you use them sparingly, if you trot everywhere, you can be in a lot of smaller engagements all the time. So a lot of times it depends on how the players order their cuirassiers or their unit in. If they say, I want a full-on charge that infantry formation, okay. But if they say, you know what, go up there and harass that formation or attack that formation, and I might say, well, do you want them to charge or do you just want them to kind of trot up and engage? Oh, they can just trot up there and engage. Okay, that's fine. Then I'll let them run that cavalry unit, across the map. But once they commit that cavalry unit to a charge, I'm probably going to expend it and say, look, these guys are spent. They're done at least for an hour or more. They're not coming back anytime soon. However, if they are in a charge and the enemy falls back, I might let them continue the charge. And again, that's umpire discretion, because that's reasonably what they would do. They wouldn't push the enemy back and then stop. Oh, I'm tired. No,
Right.
they're gonna kill. That's their job. So
Right. You don't want the infantry reforming a line and killing you after you won.
precisely, yeah. And again, this is why you have an umpire here. We could sit here and write rules for all these little things, but then the rule book would, become 20, 30, 40 pages long to cover every scenario. It would be filled with minutia and obscurities, and the system becomes unplayable. So we just as umpires, you just have to say, I'm going to use my brain. And all of us here as war gamers, we're intelligent enough to sort through this. No big deal. We know. We know from our reading and from our wargaming, we know, hey, it's logical the cuirassiers are going to keep attacking. So you do it. If for some reason there's a one-off, the player may ask, but why didn't they continue their attack? Well, as an umpire, you better have a good answer. And if you do have a good answer, then the player is required to accept it. However, you need to have a good answer. For example, a good answer might be, you pushed them back, they fell back, but they fell back across this cut in the road. The cuirassiers were not able to navigate that as well as the infantry because they're on horses versus men scrambling up an embankment on foot. Okay, that might do it, I don't know. But we might say the infantry gets away, or they get away through woods, or across whatever, I don't know. Or through a village or something. That might do it.
Right.
But again, use your umpire discretion. And if you're unsure, roll one of these dice. That's why the dice have a number. Say, well, if it comes up odd, they get away. If it's even, the cuirassiers continue. You can totally do that. That's why they have numbers on them, so you can roll them again and get that additional result to, kind of come up with those one-off scenarios where even you as an umpire aren't sure what the right thing to do might be. You roll a die. Let the dice decide things, though. That way it's objective rather than subjective. Other questions? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the live stream, which I'm going to do right now. And again, anybody watching this, if you have questions, post them in the YouTube. Even in the future, I'll try to answer them.